Our next guest is no stranger to Windy City Live. You know him as Mayor. Well, now he has written another book, this one titled The Nation City, Why Mayors Are Running the World. Please welcome back to Windy City Live, Rahm Emanuel. Well, hello there.
Hey, Val, how are you?
I'm fantastic. Where are you in your lovely home? I want to know the setup.
You want to know this? You want the virtual tour as a real estate?
Yes.
This is the library.
Oh.
And then over there is a full screen, not screen, but sliding doors onto the backyard. And then over there is the family room and fireplace and kitchen. It's over there.
Nice. The house looks very clean. Are you doing cleaning more now that you're stuck at home, or is Amy doing all?
We have a TV set. Everything gets moved. Yeah. I even got dressed up, man. I'm outside. I'm outside of the sweats. Big deal.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
we're very good. It's kind of like how should we say it? During the day, it looks exactly like it's lived in. Cleaned up at night, wake up, it's clean, and then during the day it gets back lived in look and quality.
Got it. I think that's all a reality right now. You mentioned that you dressed up for me. Did you dress up completely or just from the waist up like everybody else is doing?
I got it here. I got pants, shoes, the whole deal, man.
Nice.
It's like a job interview, Val.
Yeah.
Although for you guys, for the size, I got to put my leg underneath because I'm too short for you. I'm officially 5'8" and lower is not good for Zoom.
Have you gotten to that age where you're starting to shrink? My son told me the other day that I'm shrinking. I said, Max, I'm only 46. I'm not shrinking yet.
No, you tell Max he's still pound the Max. People
exactly. He's over smiling because we're taking a break from e-school to do this interview. But you've had some skills in this. You've taught courses before in classes, and I'm new to this. Any advice for me for teaching my young son?
Yeah, hire somebody else, number one. No, so I did it when I left President Clinton's side. I taught a class at Northwestern called The Press and the Presidency. And I told everybody on day one, you get an A. And how you participate in class, what you do for your midterm and what you do for your final will determine whether you keep your A, not me. So you get an A, etc. And so to me, that's the whole thing. Just said, it's like not earn, you keep it or not. It's on you. I don't want it. It's a form, Val, of Jewish guilt. Try it. It will really work for you in the house.
I think, you know what? I don't know. The Jewish and the blacks, I think we got a lot in common because
go when in doubt, go guilt.
Yes, I'm with that. So quarantine.
I like your shirt.
Oh, thank you.
Peace and love and unity. I like that.
Hey, I'm trying
to that.
I'm doing by any means necessary. So you and Amy have been delivering food during the quarantine to our heroes on the front lines. That's really awesome.
Yeah, about a month ago, I ordered like 2 giant trays of corned beef sandwiches from Manny's, cookies, everything. We went to UIC, Mount Sinai, U of C, Northwestern, and then we did 2 other hospitals. We did about 6 hospitals. It's my joke because of the corned beef and the potato latkes that we want to make sure the cardiologists still had love and affection. But we delivered that. And then last week at Swedish Covenant and at Stroger, and again at UIC, Amy got some products called Pasha. It was soaps, moisturizer, bath oils and salts, etc. Just basically self-care. And given you're doing all the things that you're doing for everybody else, just don't forget to take care of yourself. And then we did that, the Swedish Covenant and Stroger Hospital. And just to thank our, my mother was a radiologist nurse, and my dad was, as you know, a pediatrician. And so just they met at Mount Sinai.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really
1 week of dating. He proposed to her, married 64.
way.
Yeah.
All these years, you've never told me that they only dated for a week before he proposed.
1 week. And it's my joke. They were married for 64 years and fought for all 67 of them.
Speaking of fighting, we've been doing a lot of stories about couples will either survive the quarantine or we're going to see a spike in the divorce rates.
Mhm.
Are you guys surviving, or is Amy ready to get you out of the house?
No, no, we're doing what we call bar hopping. We start drinking in the library, then go over to the family room, and then go to the kitchen. We bar hop and no, it's it has it's like anything else, ebbs and flows. Certain times you quarantine into your own room, like
Tell me about it.
and then but we're doing dinner every night together.
Dinner every night. Now, are the kids back home quarantining with you guys or no?
No, everybody's the girls are at in the cottage in Michigan. They're doing their online learning for college.
All right. Well, listen, let's talk about the book because I think it's so timely that this. When did you start working on it, by the way?
Now it's about almost literally a little over about 2 years, a little over 2 years and some change.
You have predicted better timing for a book like this because you're talking about why mayors are now running the world, because during this pandemic, we're seeing more and more of the fact that mayors and governors are taking the lead and running the world, whereas we really should be relying on the federal government for that leadership. You say that's not happening.
As I said, I worked for two presidents. I believe in the essential role of both the White House or the presidency and the national government. But I said it was breaking, and that mayors at that time, because of what I saw and what I was doing, were taking on much more responsibility and authority for things that 20 years ago, not even close. And I don't want, listen, that was an observation.
Mm-hmm.
It's not one and I think we know now that yes, it's broken, but B, how essential it is to have that national government setting a national course for us, etc. And that leadership, or as Harry Truman said, the buck stops here. You can't kind of slough it off to 58 different governors. You either take responsibility or somebody else needs to take it.
Right. But when that does not happen, don't you feel like the mayors and the governors of all these states are doing just that, taking the lead?
No, well, first of all, they're not only taking the lead, but they are showing you the difference between leadership and showmanship. And not to be very political or very partisan quickly, but I mean, take Governor DeWine, Republican out of Ohio, our Governor Pritzker, Governor Cuomo, Governor Newsom. You could take Governor Hogan out of Maryland, another Republican. They have done things that they never saw as in the purview of a governor, but they've had to do it because power voids get filled. It's just a fact. And thank God we have real quality people stepping up and doing their job and taking responsibilities. But I still say they can only get so far to the water's edge. You need the national government, and you don't need 50 centers for disease controls, 50 centers for national institutes for health and not only health but also for disease control. You need one central authority that lays out parameters and ensures the country. I mean, take World War II. When Roosevelt was rationing and the country went into a ration system, he didn't say give you 50 different models. There was a singular plan for the country as a whole because we were all in this together. Now, mayors and governors have stepped up in a dramatic way and done some really great things, but I still believe you need that partnership and the leadership.
What are in the book, you talk about ideas moving horizontally between mayors. And you've been in that two-term mayor, so you've been in that seat. You know what you're talking about sharing these ideas horizontally. Talk a little bit more about the benefits of that and why more of that needs to be done.
Well, a lot of it, I mean, I use some examples there, and we can talk about it even in this current moment. But we're right now, I think, on the third year in our city of doing our streetlights all LED lighting, which save us about $100 million over 10 years. It's manufactured on the west side by a number of ex-offenders. It was an idea, though, that I copied straight out of Vancouver. And it was an idea that I replicated what they're doing and that model. And there's other examples of both. Take the community college where we made, there's a Chicago Star Scholarship. You know how proud I am of that. First city to do free community college for anybody that got a B average at public high schools. Well, Boston's doing it. Denver's doing it. San Francisco's doing it. Seattle's doing it. And there's about 5 states, but here's an example. Everybody's replicating now, coming up with a different variation of the music, but the same idea that high school is not the end of the road.
Right.
Nobody from the Secretary of Education or the Department of Education of the national government has called one mayor. No member of Congress has asked for a hearing on, well, how's Chicago working? What's the completion rate? What's the retention rate? What's what's Denver doing or Boston doing? And how do we compare the apples and oranges? Nobody. So today, ideas move across the political system. They don't start locally and then move up to a national effort. And I think it's a telling sign that neither the Congress, or for that matter, or more importantly, the Department of Education, has asked one of the 7 mayors who've done some variation of free community college to come and testify or say, can we see your data? Now, the good news is the Chicago Star Scholars, their completion rate and retention rate, staying year after year, is almost double or triple, depending on what data you look at, the norm for community colleges. That's an incredible point. Now, the question is, what does that mean? What does that do for the country? How's it? But that's an example of ideas moving now horizontally, either people replicating Chicago or Chicago replicating other people's ideas.
Let's talk about your book in relation to the current pandemic we're at right now. What would you say would be?
I thought this was going to be a pandemic-free interview.
Well, I mean, I just think it's no.
I know. I'm teasing. Go ahead.
I know, but you know that your book is timely because there are certain weaknesses that we face now. And you've been in the administration when H1N1, and you saw how it was dealt with then. What did we, as a country, the nation, city, state, whatever, what did we do wrong? Is it too late? Are we behind this? And what happens? Because it's not a point of if this comes back. It's when this comes back, and how do we deal with it
how do we prevent? Yeah. So you asked like 7 questions. So
I did.
Okay, let me peel them off. One is I would never bet against America. Anybody who's ever gone short on America has lost. So when we invest in America, invest in Americans and American ingenuity, and when we pull together, credible things will happen. We've proven that multiple times throughout the history of this great country. Mm-hmm. But here is what the difference between H1N1, SARS, MERS, Ebola, was that those first 8 weeks, the President of the United States, by denying that there was a problem, disregarding the intelligence he was getting, that that China was lying, etc., an incredible waste of time. Because if you had pulled massive forces early, you would not have both either the loss of life or the disruption in the economy. Mm-hmm. And those 8 weeks are not like any other 8 weeks. Now, I happen to think all the work that's been done, as you said, I'll take the second part of this question, which is there is no doubt, Val, it doesn't matter how much you try to clamp down, this is coming back. Is the public health system better prepared? I think it is. Do we have the right type of systems in place? Do we know who is a more vulnerable population than we knew on February 25th? We know now that people living in nursing homes, long-term care, or elderly are much more vulnerable. They're almost 35% of all loss of life. And people with
the American community.
Yes. And then when you deal with other issues like obesity, diabetes, hypertension, which are predominant in the African-American community, you are also dramatically much more vulnerable. So take your healthcare systems, apply them to the most vulnerable population. Mm-hmm. And the other reason is, I think if you look at the beaches of California, you look at some of the things that are happening around our city, you look at other cities, people are going to they have spring fever. Now, you cannot repress it. So the question is, this should not come down to life or livelihood. Right. That's a false choice. So we have to come up with an understanding. And if you look at the history of when President Roosevelt spoke directly to the country, or President Kennedy during the Cuban Missile Crisis, you need the clarity of candor at this moment. That's what a president can do. A governor can do something, a mayor can do, but there's a president. And say, look, this is Kennedy once said, I love this quote, which is, to govern is to choose between bad and worse. That's where we are. Yeah. And so we're going to say, look, this is a long struggle against an illness. Here's how we're going to deal with it. Here's who's going to come back in society. Here are the changes that are going to happen in society. And here's how we're going to apply our resources to the most vulnerable, whether they're poor, senior, or people of color. because it's clear now that we have 3 or 4 months, we can see the trends beginning,
Right.
and that's where we're going to apply our resources. But then allow the economy, and more important, the society, because people need a purpose in life. Just sitting at home, there's benefits to it, but there's also livelihood and meaning and purpose that you have to rejuvenate. And I think that then you're going to have the capacity for your public health to deal with the crisis, as well as the ability of society and the economy and the wheels to start moving again.
Once we get through this, and we will get through this,
Yeah.
what are the priorities? What's the top number 3 things that we should do once we come out of this?
One of the things, so I'm cheating a little here. I was just on the phone with one person for a presidential candidate, but I'll just tell you what, I've written about this before, but I will tell you, I'll give you one upside. For the last, call it 6 years, we've all talked about how divided America is, about race, geography, income, gender. True. We also just found out in this crisis how much brotherhood and neighborhood, and that we have each other's back.
Very true.
And that are the threads that bind us as a country, as a city, as a community, are stronger than sometimes we know ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the great tradition of the Peace Corps under Kennedy, AmeriCorps under President Clinton, President Obama doubled the size of AmeriCorps. The last time we had this moment of unity like we have now was 9/11.
Yeah.
President Bush at that time said, don't, go shopping. I think we need to bottle this. I think we need to nurture this unity and not let it dissipate, because it's really the most important thing to re-establish and strengthen the fabric that ties us. And I'm for just as an idea, don't get fixated on the time, but when you graduate high school, regardless of where you're from, 6 months of national service. And if you do longer, we'll pay all your college. But everybody, your son, my daughters and my son, across the country, regardless of where you live, regardless of what your mom and dad do, you're going to give 6 months to this country. You're going to reestablish your identity as an American. And I think the benefit of the one thing I said, there's a lot of other good things that have come, but I really think the one positive is that we, for all the talk of the division and divisiveness, etc.,
Right.
we got each other's backs here.
Yes, we do.
And there's a lot more, and going through a shared experience together brings you together. And so my thing is, how do you nurture that? Because that's a very valuable resource when Americans are united.
Right.
And so that would be an idea I would look at. 2, I think it's clear work, medicine, and education are all going to be done a lot more by distance. We don't have universal broadband. We don't have universal access to the technology. And if you're going to do your healthcare, your education, or your work more and more by technology, making sure both, not only is broadband there, but every child has coding in their education as part of their graduation, so that they have the capacity to actually manage their way through this new economy. And I would say, and I would make that type of investment. I also think, to quote now, the second quote, which is Warren Buffett's, which is, when the tide goes out, who's swimming without their shorts on. Our public health system has not, we have good health care. We have certain strengths. We also have certain vulnerabilities and weaknesses. And we have not been investing in our public health service systems, and we need to do that. And only the national government can mobilize the type of we've done certain things, like in our city, my fixation about smoking and vaping and stuff like that. We did certain things also on AIDS in this city through our public health. But we need to also make investments in the infrastructure to when you have a crisis. And here's the one thing Val. In 20 years, we have now faced 5 separate viruses.
Yes.
And so guess what? More likely of the next 20 years, we're going to face another 5. Now, I don't think every virus should lead to an economic depression. So we better get this, learn the lessons and apply it forward.
Absolutely. 10 seconds. I'm almost done.
Yes.
You had to grade our Governor Pritzker, Mayor Lori Lightfoot. What grade do you give them?
I'm not gonna do that.
Are you impressed with how they're handling our pandemic?
Yeah, listen, here's the thing. You have a crisis, and they're stepping up because there's a big void, and they're doing exactly what they need to do. I try to stay away from making comments, doing anything. The jobs are tough enough,
Mhm.
and I don't want to do anything to make anything tougher, etc. I root for our city. I root for our state. And in a uncharted water, in the same way, like when I was by President Obama's side, nobody had in the drawer. When the economy collapses, the auto industry collapses, here's what you do. So they are making it up as they go, and they're doing a good job. And you know who's really doing a great job? The people of the city of Chicago,
That's right.
caring for each other.
That's right. We got each
Yeah.
other's back. We are in this together. It's turned into
Yeah.
a hashtag and a little bit of a cliche, but it's so true. We will get through this, and we're in this together. Rahm Emanuel, thank you so much for chatting with us. Of course, everyone go out and get his new book, The Nation City. And if you are at home and you want to see the full unedited version of this interview, make sure you check out our social media.
I want to look at your son's homework, because I bet you I'm a better grader, easier than Mom on this one.
I think on that note, we'll be right back with more Windy City Live.